Hello, everybody. I'm Chad Blair with the Honolulu Civil Beat. Great to see you coming out tonight. I was telling Micah a little earlier. I didn't realize this was part of this district. Learning a lot about. That's one of the reasons we do these pop-up elections as well as our pop-up newsrooms. It gets us out of our office. We're in Kaimuki. And it also gets us to the neighbor islands. And you can't just, in this day and age, sit in front of a computer, sit by your phone, and try and find out what's going on in the world. You really got to go out and meet people. And we really learn a lot. And we think that's very important about Civil Beat's engagement. I mean, how can you really, I mean, we're a nonprofit. How can you serve the public unless you get out? So it's really great to do it. But I sometimes get lost. And I had to use we were in Mililani Malka last night, and my Google Maps called it Mililani Maka. So anyway, that's another world. This is the election pop-up for State House District 32, which covers Fort Shafter, Moanalua, Aliamanu, Foster Village, and portions of Aiea and Halawa, and a little tiny sliver of Kalihi, as I found out. We are not live, but we are recording. We will be posting this on our website in a day or three, however long it takes. Kavika says it's going to go up tomorrow. That's great. And he is our whiz when it comes to this stuff. People watch these things. It's really been very impressive. It's easy to find on the website. And we do this because there really isn't much attention to these, if you will, smaller races, but we feel that it's very important. And I can just tell you from our metrics, a lot of people have been watching them. We do ask, however, that you silence your phone. Vibrate's probably fine, but we don't want to go off interrupting things. We do have snacks back there. That's Ashley back there. We just ask you to sign in if you can and help yourself. And if you want to wait till after we're POW, that's fine too. Most of the questions are going to come from me, but we do have these index cards that we ask you to fill out. And I've already got two of them. Thank you for doing that. Ashley has them, and she's got pins. And I will try and get to as many questions as I can. I'm filtering them. And if we run out, that's fine. If we have to break early, that's fine too. Generally, we've been stopping around 6:30, so about a good solid hour. But then, as we break down, you have a chance to come up and talk to Garner and to Micah and ask them some questions. This is a civil engagement. This is not a formal debate. It's not going to be like, you probably saw it. You're right. I have to say it every time, even if you haven't seen it. This is not Trump. This is not Harris. This is not Vance and Walz. It is really truly civil, as in being Civil Beat. I'm trying not to put people on the spot too much. It's really a chance for you to learn about the people that want to represent you here. So without further ado, hello to Micah. Aiea is how it's pronounced, and Garner Shimizu. And Micah is an attorney, state rep since 2022. If your bio is up to date, it says that you're vice chair of the House Housing Committee. You're also on the House Finance Committee, which is typical of a freshman. You're also on the Transportation Committee, the Kapuna Caucus, Native Hawaiian Caucus, National Caucus of Native American State Legislators, and director with the Moanalua Gardens Community Association. Okay, I got that right. And Garner Shimizu is retired, also with the Moanalua Valley Community Association, a director and a past president. It says you're both directors. Is that right?
He's the Valley and I'm the Gardens. We have two separate associations.
Oh my gosh, one does indeed say Valley. The other one says Gardens. What did I tell you about us learning things when we get out of the office? I'm going to Moanalua because I'm going to Kaiser. That's kind of when I'm out here, or Red Hill for press conferences. Garner is also the Moanalua Valley Neighborhood Security Watch captain, Sheet Metal Contractors Association president, member of the board of directors, also a trustee with the Sheet Metal Union Trust Fund. And also Sheet Metal Union Negotiation Committee, management chair, and another association with the Apprenticeship Training Committee. These two duked it out 2 years ago, and it was 246 vote difference. That's not as close as Kim Koko Iwamoto and Scott Psyche. There is an automatic a recount that we have now too. But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there were actually more blank votes cast than the difference between the two of you. I wrote down about nearly 500 votes. That just shows you how closely contested this contest is. And so every vote is going to matter. And to start with, I'm just going to have a sort of a general scene setter here, and we'll go with Micah first. Micah, why should District 32 give you another 2 years in office?
Thank you, Chad. I just want to say thank you to Civil Beat for putting on this forum. Thank you for everyone who showed up today and just wanting to get engaged. And I would like to say it brings me so much satisfaction to be able to correct Civil Beat and Chad in the beginning. So
It so rarely happens. I wish.
yeah, but
because it's important to get it right. And thank you for doing that.
but I think I've done a lot in the first 2 years. Like you said, Chad, I was part of the House Finance Committee. I was vice chair of the Housing Committee, and on the Transportation Committee, I really did some important work, and I hit the ground running as soon as I got elected. So I got involved with the neighborhood boards, the community associations, and listened to the response of the community and tried to deliver for them from the very beginning. So one of the first things I tackled was getting speed bumps installed along Alaolani in the Moanalua Valley. As you know, speed bumps are very contentious sometimes. Sometimes they take years to just get put in. And we got that very quickly, and I'm very happy about that. But just staying in tune with the community and being involved is something that is really important to me. And I think I did a really great job at that in the first 2 years, and I'd like the voters to give me another shot at that in the future.
Thank you, Micah. Garner, the question to you, of course, is why should District 32 actually go with you this time?
Thank you for the question, Chad. And I'd also like to thank my supporters for being here. I think that the question of why I'm running is a very important question because it reveals the heart and motive behind why a person does something and the decisions they will make going forward. The way that I feel, I see my Hawaii that I love and grew up in disappearing and being lost. I know that sounds kind of dramatic. You might say, wow, Garner, that sounds pretty dramatic. But you know, when I've been going door to door and I share that statement, people resonate with that. They nod their heads and they go, yeah, I know what you mean. You know, I see a lot of people struggling and having a hard time making ends meet. Multiple families and generations living together, working multiple jobs, trying to make ends meet. Some have already lost hope and they've already left the state, while others are making plans to or seriously considering that option. You know, I don't know how Hawaii can be Hawaii when there are more Hawaiians outside of Hawaii than living in the state and less locals here. I think we lose the essence of what Hawaii is. Crime and homelessness seem to be increasing all around us, and our aloha spirit is being overwhelmed. I know government alone is not solely responsible and cannot solve all of our problems, but government is the main manager and influence directing the direction of our society. Elected officials should be true public servants, focusing on helping and serving people, and not more concerned about accommodating special interests or being reelected to preserve power. As a person of faith, I truly believe that I have been called and invited by God to help and serve my community. God has given me a conviction and a love to care about my community and my fellow man, the lost, those who are struggling.
Thank you, Garner. Appreciate that. I want to be careful on balancing the time as best as I can. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Okay, sorry. I know I was kind of taking long to.
No, that's all right. It was well stated, but I do want to be mindful of the time. We do have a lot of questions.
Right.
Micah and Garner, both of you, thank you for doing our candidate Q&As. They are on our website as well, and it's really a great resource. And a lot of people read those as well. I'm going to pull a couple questions from both of your Q&As, and Micah, we'll start with you. Garner was talking about the biggest issues. Here's what you said. While protecting our aquifer will be a constant concern, many in my district see the high cost of living in Hawaii as the most pressing issue. Families feel this everywhere, from the gas pump to the grocery store, healthcare and insurance costs, and from mortgage, rent payments to taxes. If you had to narrow it down, is there one or two that's right at that top there? I mean, anything that in particular really gets to you, particularly when you talk to your constituents?
That's hard because a lot of times people say it's the cost of living, and like I said, they feel that everywhere. I would like to go back. You know, we had this Red Hill field disaster a few years ago. It's adjacent to the Moanalua community, so the community really feels that is a very pressing issue. I don't want to minimize that at all. It's still very pressing. Board of Water Supply came to present to the community associations yesterday and a month ago, specifically to tell the community about that. So I don't want to minimize that. That's still in the back of everyone's mind, especially in Moanalua. But I think housing has a really big component to the cost of living and where people feel the pinch. Garner was talking about, you know, multiple families living in the same household just so that they can be able to make ends meet. We got to figure out a way to increase the supply so we can reduce the price for housing for everyone, and figure out some strategies in order to get people into housing a little bit more efficiently, and, you know, have a trickle down effect on rents, and, you know, have more people live here in the state. So I'm really proud of the work I did as the vice chair of the housing committee. We had a lot of great strategies and different techniques, and a lot of funding that went into like rental housing revolving fund, and making those appropriations to Department of Hawaiian Homeland so that they can really get more Hawaiians into housing and get the wait list a little bit shorter.
Okay. Garner, you had identified some of your issues, cost of living in particular. You mentioned crime. Others in your Q&A, homelessness, domestic violence, the deterioration of a family time and relationships. And he also mentioned Kama'aina leaving our state for a lot of these very reasons, housing as well. Was there any issue that I ticked off that you didn't get a chance to mention that's particularly of concern to you? One of our early questions was actually specifically about your top three priorities, but I just want to make sure, is there something that I missed that you wanted to call attention to, a priority for you in this district?
That was a pretty good list, I
Thank
think.
you. Thank yourself.
Yeah, I tried to be as thorough as I could.
Well, I will ask you this. Are you satisfied with the response to Red Hill?
Well, I have a big sigh of relief because I live close by there, and every time I would drive past there when the fuel was still there, I would pray, Lord, please protect our water from any more leaks. And for them to drain it in the time that they did ahead of schedule, that was a big relief to know that it's not there. I really am proud of the community and the public, because I think that's a prime example of public voicing themselves, coming together for a righteous cause and effecting change, causing government and the military, for that matter, to respond and to really turn, you know, and recognize the problem, recognize and respect the public, and understand how serious a problem it is. Of course, there is still the problem of the leak that has occurred throughout history, whatever is already in the ground, and that's why Board of Water is still monitoring, the military is still monitoring to keep a check on that, to make sure that it's not spreading, that the water that we drink is safe. And that is the most important thing, that the water that we have is safe to drink. And I want to thank Board of Water Supply, Ernie Lau and Erwin Kawata for policing that for the public. But that's an ongoing battle of remediation and what else might still need to be done.
Okay, Micah, real quickly, what still does need to be done in terms of Red Hill?
I think there's been a lot recently about coordination between the Board of Water Supply and the Navy, and the information getting to the public. And I think the Navy or the military just needs to rebuild trust in the state. we look around and, on every base there's an issue or a pressing problem. And I think transparency is really important in that process. They need to be more transparent. They need to be in the community, going to some of these meetings, and a little bit of independent verification. And so that's when I talk about coordination between the Navy and the regulators and a Board of Water Supply. If we can all be on the same page, I think that is one of the most important things. And I think we're still trying to work to that. We just haven't really gotten there yet.
Garner, also from your Q&A, this is on pay to play and corruption. Quoting you, many meaningful bills addressing reform were not even heard by our currently Democratic Party controlled legislature. Tell me more about that.
Well, I'm a champion or want to be a champion of campaign reform because I really feel like finances and money has too much of an influence on the process. That's why incumbents have such a success rate of re-election. They have the power of continuing to build their campaign accounts. I really feel like we need to limit the amount of monies that we raise and spend, and that it's not about raising money. It's about the candidate, the qualities, the values, the positions, and how that resonates with the voter, and how you align your values with the candidate. So I think money has way too much influence. Yeah.
No, let's keep with this topic actually, and to Micah, this same thing, pay to play corruption. Quoting you, the legislature adopted many of the proposals put forward by the commission to improve standards of conduct, the Foley Commission. While I think the state is on the right track, there is always more that can be done. Tell me at least one thing more that can be done.
I mean, I think there have been some discussions regarding when contributions can be made.
Like when lawmakers are actually meeting and discussing your bills, for example.
Right. And I know we passed some reforms regarding lobbyists when they can make contributions, but I think there is this perception that, you meet with people, they give you a contribution, or they like what you say and then they give you a contribution, and then it's the perception of that, I think, is something that we need to try to combat. I personally haven't experienced talking to someone, getting a donation and then voting in their favor. That the contribution never crosses my mind as far as how I'm going to vote. I'm always thinking about how the community is going to respond to this particular piece of legislation. And I think when you really distill the 300 plus bills that we pass every year, very few of them reach that special interest level. So I think being a little bit more transparent about the contribution is something that we can tackle.
This is another question from our audience along these same lines. The longer career politicians stay in position, the more power they seem to have. What are your views on term limits? The legislature does not have term limits. Congress does not have term limits. The county positions in the state do have term limits. So does the governor and lieutenant governor, president. So we'll start with Micah first. Views on term limits.
I don't support term limits. In my experience, I see, when you look at some of the people in term limit positions, they leave their positions early. They don't fill out the rest of their term. You see a lot of jumping between positions when there's term limits. And the last thing is you lose a lot of institutional knowledge about certain projects or things that you are trying to build. So the people or the lawmakers that passed rail don't see that project through to the end, and you can't really hold those people that passed it, 8 years ago to account. There's no accountability for those actions because they're not in office anymore, and they know they're not going to be in office by the time those projects come to fruition. So I think you really lose some of that accountability, and you lose some of that institutional knowledge that's so important. I look at my mom a lot. She's been in office a very long time, as you know. And she has some knowledge about things that they tried 30, 40 years ago that did not work. And if you get rid of those people, you welcome a class of 30 new people or 20 new people. In my class, we had a very large incoming class, which is another reason why I think term limits aren't necessary. The turnover in the legislature is actually at a good rate. You lose some of that knowledge, and we might make those same mistakes because we just frankly aren't aware of what happened 30 years ago and what didn't work.
Okay, Garner, term limits, your views.
I'm a believer in term limits. If it's good for the president, for the governor, for the mayor, for the city council, I think it should be across the board. I think it's there for a purpose. Term limits as it's currently applied, and I think it needs to expand to the legislature and even Congress. You know, the saying "absolute power corrupts absolutely." I'm not saying that all elected officials are corrupt, but the tendency is there to establish relationships that tend to go south. You know, I really feel like the people want term limits. I've been hearing that, and they have concerns that government officials have forgotten about them, are more concerned about catering to special interests and getting reelected. Again, going back to the point of incumbents who I've heard who have been in office for many years have over 100,000 or so in their campaign accounts. And how can a new person that has a qualified resume wanting to serve in government compete with the office of the incumbent that has that kind of backing? Micah makes the point that we lose experience. And I would say that, you know, there are creative ways to address that. You know, if a certain person that he is referring to created bills and has this institutional knowledge, then we can always go back to them and ask them, can you please come in here and advise us or give us some background on why this was done or why this shouldn't be done, and we can always collaborate and make information accessible for all of us. That's what transparency is about.
Okay. Another question from the audience. I'm sorry, I'm not going to ask the question about the 64% pay raise because that's the city council, but I will just plug there is a charter amendment question for the city and county to make sure that doesn't happen again. So just FYI. I think what we'll do here is start with Garner on this one and to Micah for both candidates. What is your view on the Aloha Stadium just right down the road redevelopment? Are you in favor of a stadium, or do you envision the property being used for other purposes? And this is this acronym I don't quite understand. NASID, I think, is what it's called. NASID is how it's pronounced. But you know, big plans, and part of this is coming to play. Why don't we just use Ching Field for football and so forth? So Garner, your position on Aloha Stadium redevelopment, and then Micah.
Well, I'm a sports fan, so I'm for a new stadium. You know, especially for the University of Hawaii, if we continue in Division I competition, Ching Complex is not sufficient. I'm actually disappointed that the stadium is only going to be 35,000 attendance, and that limits their capability. From my understanding, the NASID, or the Aloha Stadium redevelopment, is a public-private partnership, and the state is putting up money for a new stadium, but is arranging with the private developer to finance the rest of the development, which includes maintenance of the stadium for, I believe, 50 years. So on theory, it sounds like a great idea. Hopefully, it will be structured in a way that is not open-ended like rail is. So we definitely want to avoid a rail fiasco. But as you can see, that area is underdeveloped. So it is a good consideration to maximize the potential of that area. But we don't want to compete with existing business there. We need to coordinate with the community, and we definitely don't want another kaka'ako. So I think it's very important to have constant community involvement and input and collaboration as much as possible so that it's a win-win situation.
Micah, Aloha Stadium.
So I sent out a survey to all my constituents after my first year in office, And a pretty decent majority of people, I think it was about 65% of the individuals in this community said they are looking for stadium redevelopment. I think you look at Aloha Stadium now, it's falling apart. I think the community does deserve new infrastructure in this area. Maybe it's not a stadium, but it definitely, we need to repurpose that land. I think it's very valuable land. We might be able to use that for housing or other activities. But I think the stadium, they're trying to build an entertainment district. It's the new Aloha Stadium Entertainment District, they said.
Okay.
Okay. So I think, repurposing that land, putting something into use, something that can benefit the state, something that can benefit all the public is something important and something that we need to continue to focus on.
Okay, Garner, I see your mic. Did you want to add something there?
No, I was kind of laughing to myself that we need to find the salesman who said that rust will make the steel stronger. Because we could probably use him to sell some other things for.
I can think of some other things that we might have to do with him, but that's something related. Totally. Actually, you brought it up. Rail. Help me again. Educate myself. I know there's the rail currently stops at Aloha Stadium. I know it's going to go to the airport and it's going to go to Middle Street, and we'll see where it goes after that. But isn't there a stop also near here? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't get out here as much as I'd like. Is there another rail stop nearby that services your district? You're nodding and saying that there is. Okay, so then I guess my next question is, what happens if we're going to be short on money and the city council, the mayor, comes to you, Department of Transportation Services, and asks for more money? Maybe it's another extension of that GET surcharge, or maybe it's tweaking the TAT, the hotel tax. I think I'll ask Garner first this question, and then Micah. Do you support rail? And if you're in office, are you willing to charge the taxpayers more and tourists to pay for it? Garner.
Yeah, I wish Michael went first on this one.
I'll go if you want me to go.
No,
He's volunteering.
I'm just kind of joking in a way because, that if I was able to turn back the hands of time, when I think about the ballot when it first came out, would you support rail? And it was a ballot item where the people voted for it, and it was, would you support rail? And it stated a fixed budget and a fixed completion date, which has gone way over budget and has gone way past the schedule. So, we can all second guess. We could have done this. We should have done this. I think we're way more than halfway committed to rail, and to stop it and not have a meaningful use of it would be even more of a crime and a waste of our money. So we need to really look at how we can utilize the rail in a meaningful way by increasing bus services and park and rides.
And if the state is asked to help bail it out when it's falling short, which probably will be the case, depending, at least based on the latest rider projections that we're seeing, are you willing? I know that's a tough thing to pin someone down on, but it probably will come before the legislature again, because one of them is sunsetted, right? I think it's pretty close that it's coming up 30, 31.
Yeah, I think if it comes to that, then there will be some conditions for monies to be given to the city, like some kind of thorough audit of where the money has been spent, and if there's any mismanagement on that and any recovery of that, how we can increase efficiency or eliminate inefficiencies, and having some kind of oversight on that, because it just seems like it's an open checkbook and they can just keep asking for more because the cost overruns.
Okay. And please, Micah, before you respond to the question, educate me. Where is that stop that's between Aloha Stadium and the airport? There is a stop, is there, or is there not a rail stop? It's not built yet. There's no stop that's planned.
I don't think so.
Okay.
But there is a stop going that way in Aiea, which is in our district. So
Okay.
we have an Aiea stop and one over here by the stadium, which is just outside of our district.
That's
but
very
it
helpful. I
counts.
appreciate that. So to you, your position on rail, and if you have to help bail out paying for it.
I think the rail is a transformational piece of infrastructure that we might not realize in our current generation, but as we complete rail and it connects the Kapolei to downtown Honolulu, and we continue to invest in housing and infrastructure and businesses along the rail line, TOD, which is something that we're very focused on. We open up a whole new market and so much more housing for people to live in. And when we talk about cost of living, reducing transportation costs is a huge component of that. If you didn't have to spend an hour or 2 hours in traffic coming from Kapolei to Honolulu, and you could spend that time with your family, you put 2 or 4 more hours with your family instead of driving, and you're catching the rail, which takes 30 minutes. Plus, you're not paying. I don't know. I don't fill up that often. I live pretty close to town, but I know some people fill up, every 3 or 4 days, and that gets expensive for them. So we're really trying to build a transformational piece of infrastructure that gives us so many more opportunities in the state, as well as reduce one of the main components of people's, costs, which is transportation costs. I think it's something that we can't see right now, but as we complete the rail and we connect big hubs of the state together, we're really going to realize some of the benefits to the state.
Go ahead, Garner.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Micah, and I wished I had brought that up. The TODs, which is transit-oriented development. So the strategy on that is that at each rail station, strategic development and housing would be done at those stations to prevent urban sprawl, to prevent traffic, and to encourage people to use the rail. So as Michael pointed out, it is an investment, an infrastructure investment for the future. I guess it remains to be seen how long it will take to for us to see the benefits of that, and maybe it's something that we as this generation has to bite the bullet for the future. But again, we need to be careful with spending. And I'm a firm believer in audits and oversight.
Okay. We're at the 30-minute mark. Did you answer the question about whether you would bail out at the ledge if it comes to that?
I don't want to call it a bailout, but yes, I would support the rail.
Just making sure. Okay. This is a fun one, and it's not for me, but I've never had this question before, and it's wonderful. Micah, you'll go first. What is your favorite place to eat in your district? What is your favorite thing and your favorite place to eat in your district?
So before a few months ago, I would have said Aiea Bowl. Tasty chicken, kabi, mixed plate is...
What changed?
Okay, so I've been in that Aiea area a lot, and there's this Soon's Korean barbecue place. She's across the street, kind of like underneath behind the best Korean food I think I've ever had on the island. And I think it's her and her husband and one other employee there. Some of the best Korean food I've had. So that's the place. Shout out to them.
What's the menu item of choice?
I get the mixed plate. So it comes with barbecue meat and a piece of kalbi and terry chicken. It's a little on the pricey side, but it doesn't break the bank, but it's delicious.
Okay, Garner, to you.
All right, I'm a senior, so I'm on a fixed budget. So I go for economy. There's this place that we like to call Mamaya in the Pearl Kai, or West Pearl Kai, across of Pearl Ridge. Yeah. So I like to get the chicken katsu donburi. It's like $8, and I can't even finish it. So, for me that's value, and it tastes really good too. For the price you pay, it's really good. And as far as enjoyment, believe it or not, I'm a basketball lover and I love to play basketball. So we have a standing Sunday and Wednesday game pickup at the park at Moanalua Middle School in the back. And I haven't been able to play because obviously I'm campaigning and taking up all my time, but I love to play with those guys.
I may have misinterpreted when you said favorite thing. I wasn't even thinking basketball. I was thinking food item. Maybe it's because it's already dinner time.
I thought it was a two-part question.
That's all right. That's all right. The favorite thing to do in your district? That's okay. Let's move on to something more substantive. Micah, you're a member of the majority. Can you really stand out and stand up without worry among Democrats if you disagree with the speaker, whoever that's going to be, or others. Can you do that? Would you do that?
I think I have, and I think I've done that. Like I was saying earlier, we had 20 new members in the House this year, which is the most ever.
I think so.
And so when you talk about changing norms and changing how the legislature works, when you got 20 new members, things are going to change. And I think I saw that a lot. I don't think I was pressured a lot. There weren't that many senior members there who are like, you can't do this, or you're supposed to act in a certain way, because the new guys kind of had the majority. If you look at, there were 20 this past year. I think there were even more in the 2 years ago, and there were even more 2 years ago, 2 years before that. So there's really a young group of newcomers that want to change the state, that want to see some of these changes that the public has been complaining a lot about. We also want to see some of those changes, and I think the speaker was open to that. Actually, he wasn't on anyone for voting no on any of the bills, because I think he realized that times are changing and there's new blood in the legislature.
Okay. Garner, if you get in, you're going to be a member of the minority. Can you really make a difference? Right now, there's only, is it 6?
It's correct, 6.
I believe it is 5 plus 1 if you count it a certain way.
Yeah.
And that could change after November the 5th. But how are you as a Republican going to make a difference and be heard?
I've asked myself that question many times, and it almost feels like hitting my head against the wall the way the rules are set up currently. If I'm a sports lover. If you had a game where you were playing 45 against 6 or 23 against 2, and the team with the overwhelming majority makes all the rules, how are you going to play and win? And I think it's important, again, going back to the heart and motive of why I'm doing this and representing people who feel like they need to be heard. I think it's important to be a voice, to be a platform, of being a two-way communication where I can be in the community. I've walked the district twice now, going door to door, listening to constituents, hearing their concerns, and letting them know that government is there for them and will be there for them if I'm elected, and hearing their concerns and try to bring it up and having a platform to voice their concern. Whether the majority Democratic Party is going to take any of that, that remains to be seen. But I think by the other way, going back to feeding back to the community by letting them know what's going on in the legislature, that it's not just a black box that they have no idea what's going on. I would love to keep them informed of what's important, what things are being discussed there. I really would love to change the temperature of people's hope meter, that they would really come alive and get involved in the process. I think our low voter turnout is because of apathy, is because people have given up hope. They really feel like government has forgotten them, and it doesn't really make a difference who they elect or if they vote. So I think it's really important to, again, be that communication person, have a platform, and change the climate of people's mindsets.
Cookie frogs, coconut rhinoceros beetle, little fire ants. There are others as well. First question, is District 32 impacted in any way by invasive species? Second question, is the state doing enough? I think, Micah, we'll go with you first. I know there was some money appropriated. Some said it wasn't enough. But my first question is your district impacted by invasives?
We're certainly impacted, maybe not with those, but feral chickens, feral pigs.
You have a feral chicken problem.
How
about that?
We have a huge feral chicken problem. And feral cats is the last one. That one's a little bit more contentious with some people. But I really don't think we're doing enough with that. We gave a lot of money. Unfortunately, the governor vetoed some of that money that we appropriated this year. I think we're going to go back and try to reappropriate some of those funds to the management. But when you walk around the district, there are chickens everywhere. People complain that the chickens poop in their driveway and it's not safe for their kids to be around. And you see them running around, and we have feral pigs. And so I've worked really hard with DLNR to get a permit to the Oahu Pig Hunters Association so they can come and do hunting in the valley to do feral pig management. So the community is this is one of the big issues actually for the community.
Moanalua Valley, correct?
Moanalua
The
Valley.
one that's right next to Kaiser.
Yes, right next to Kaiser. It's the chicken problem is a problem in the gardens. They have the same chicken problem in Halawa. So that is something that people are very concerned about, and we could do more. We could appropriate more. We could give people free traps and disposal services, because I think that's what people are looking for.
Okay, Garner, are you hearing concerns? Do you have concerns about invasive species or feral cats and pigs and chickens?
Yeah, chickens and cats are common complaints. I don't know if we need to support Humane Society. They no longer give out traps and take cats in, I guess because of budget restrictions or considerations. So I think the public is kind of lost as to who is going to help them with this problem. I have run into constituents that their neighbor is feeding the cats, and the cats are going on their cars and making poop all over. It's got fleas, it stink. They've called Humane Society. There's no recourse. So I think simple things like helping Humane Society, private enterprise, nonprofits, we can solve the problem if we apply ourselves.
Okay. Garner, we'll stick with you. This is from the state election guide. There's not a whole lot in the state election guide, although it has a picture of everybody. And I'm going to read from Garner's first. Well, actually, I hope I got this right.
I hope so too.
Yeah, me too. If I understand correctly, you're somewhat, I'm looking here to Micah first, but I'm asking you the question. It has to do with public financing of elections. And I'll just get right to the core of it. There was a bill 2 years running now that would have set up this system to allow for comprehensive public financing of elections. If you can get enough signatures, they get verified, you can get a whole heck of a lot of money. Like if you're running for governor, something like several $1 million, which is what you need to run for governor. But it would be for every race. There is only a partial funding system currently in place. Not a lot of people use it. It doesn't have enough money. You were talking, Garner, earlier about, not wanting to take money. Would you support comprehensive public financing of elections? Why or why not?
I would support it. Again, it would be in conjunction of establishing very modest and reasonable campaign spending limits, so that we would reduce that budget. Again, I think it would level the playing field between candidates, that we would all be on the same playing field at the same limit. I think the way that Civil Beat actually asked the question in the questionnaire, I had a yes and no in my answer, because
Actually, you did, in fact, have yes and no.
yeah,
It would be better and more fair if everyone were on the same playing field regarding campaign funding and limits to eliminate money as a major factor and driver in public decisions and voting
right,
to elect our leaders.
Right.
Are you more yes or more no? Or
no, the point of that is, if it's available but we're all not required to do it, then there's still that disparity, and that element of someone has an advantage of raising more money, whether it's from corporations or unions. And talking about that, if you were to go to the Campaign Spending Commission reports, which is public record, you can see the donations, who made donations, the amounts of the donations. And if you compare our reports, you would see that my donors are friends and family. I don't have PACs. I don't have unions. I don't have executives of corporations. So, we talk about impropriety, but why are they giving to a certain candidate? You ask the question, Is it to build a relationship? Is it to get their things passed? I mean, I
I'm just
question
going to
that.
answer your question. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Although
Thanks for helping me out, Chad.
I've heard many politicians and many lobbyists and many other people say, "Oh no, I don't do that at all." But I think there's a reason why you give money to politicians, because you are expecting something in return. Although I take well Micah's view that he has not been persuaded by others to do that, but that is why I think money is given out. I got to ask you, I didn't check your record on the public financing bill these last 2 years. How did you vote, and how would you vote next time because I think Carl Rhodes is going to bring it up again.
I don't think I voted in favor of it. I can't remember at this time. But I did the partial public financing 2 years
yourself
ago.
qualified it when you ran for office.
Yes. And so there was some limits. I think you could only spend 25,000 or 23,500 or so. And of that, you had to get $100 contributions, and there was some matching. It was about $3,000 worth of matching. It was a pretty complicated program to, you had to jump through all these hoops and you had to file these papers. And I know there was another person running for governor who didn't do those things and, didn't qualify. So, I don't know if the program was that great. And so I'm a little hesitant if we roll out this program to everyone, and it's a lot more money, if people are going to, how are they using it? How's the money going to be given out? Are people actually going to be able to fill out those forms? And on the last point, I just don't think we should be charging the taxpayers to fund some of these very large campaigns. I think you said a couple millions of dollars for.
I think you can get as much as $2 million if you were to run for governor. Now, certainly House seats, Senate seats, county, far lower role. And this would, I believe, only be for the state races. I don't think it includes federal. Could be wrong on that one.
I just think we have a lot better things we can use to spend the taxpayers' dollars than funding elections.
Okay, Garner, it seems like you wanted to add something to that.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. You can look at something two ways, and again, if it's done in conjunction with lower campaign fundraising limits, then I think across the board we can establish reasonable monies that are invested into the quality of our candidates that are able to run. So, you can say, oh, we're investing in our government by providing this. And it's ironic. This is probably one of the things the only thing that I agree with Carl Rhodes, but I think comprehensive campaign funding is a viable option, and it would solve a lot of corruption issues, and it would level the playing field. And I think it would encourage qualified candidates to step forward, because now they're not fighting the incumbent with 100,000 in their war chest.
We're at 6:20. I have a couple more questions. This is first to you, Garner. This is coming from that state election guide again. You were talking about what you're going to do and what you can bring to the ledge by managing a family business and holding elected positions at the Community Association and the Sheet Metal Contractors Association. I have gained essential skills needed to serve and make decisions benefiting others. That really kind of caught my eye. What skill did you get from that will help you make decisions to benefit others? Family business, Community Association, sheet metal.
Well, I'm a mechanical engineering graduate, and one of the things as an engineer, you're trained to look at things analytically and solve problems. So that is second nature to me. From graduation, I worked as a consultant and worked with architects, preparing specifications and design drawings for various facilities. I then went to the construction industry, where I did run a small business, working with union. I did estimating and project managing. So I'm very familiar with reading specifications and plans and understanding them. And with the Aloha Stadium development being one of the biggest projects in our district, with a lot of monies being dedicated there, I think it would behoove our constituents to have someone that's familiar with the process, that's able to ask intelligent questions, because You know, it's funny, as I was in the construction industry and I would work with experienced people, and we would laugh, and I shouldn't say we would laugh, but we would find it humorous that people that don't even know what question to ask because they just are not familiar with the subject. So I think that would help me. Another big project that's in our district is OCCC. OCCC that's currently in Kalihi is slated to be relocated into Halawa in our district, next to the animal quarantine area. So again, those
So
are
you would be
big
stuck
projects.
with OCCC again? I didn't realize that. I knew it was in Kalihi, but if it was relocated, that is the plan. It's still Halawa, where you have the prison. That's in your backyard as well.
That's correct. That's the current plans. Yes.
What do you think about putting that OCCC in Halawa? I'm going to ask Micah the same question.
So you're asking me first.
Micah, I guess your thoughts generally, because this does go to this issue of should we just keep on locking them up and throwing away the key? These facilities are crumbling. There's a whole lot of mentally ill people have been jammed into prisons or jails in particular. But I guess I'm asking ultimately about criminal justice reform, and because we're also sending people to Arizona to be housed. So I guess Micah first and then Garner with OCCC. I did not realize Halawa was also, I know it's on the on the instructions, but I didn't realize it also contained the medium security facility.
I don't remember what you had asked.
I
Garner.
forgot my question as well. What should we do with OCCC?
But so I also work for a large construction company in the state. I'm their in-house attorney. Working there for the past 4 years, I really have seen how important infrastructure is to the state. You know, having paved roads, having a good airport, having good schools is so important for the state. And that's why I think I focused on, you know, improving our infrastructure and building out our infrastructure is so important and really benefits the public at large. Regarding the relocation of the prison or the jail, it's a very contentious issue in the neighborhood, especially at the Aiea and Halawa neighborhood security. I mean, the neighborhood associations, neighborhood boards. It's a very contentious issue. They believe that they are already burdening, you know, they're already carrying a burden of, you know, housing prisoners in Halawa with the prison, and why should they have to also, you know, bear the burden of the jail as well? And, you know, we look at other districts, there's landfills in their districts. So I think they really want to see a spreading out of some of these core services that we need in the state in order for the state to function, that it shouldn't all be housed in one district. I don't think that's fair. At this point, I'm just not sure where else it can go. So
Yeah, and it's not settled by any stretch of the imagination. Garner, how about you? Anything further on OCCC being relocated? And does it actually? What happened to the animal quarantine station? Is it where would those guys go? The cats and the dogs. Okay, they would stay. There's okay, got it.
They're going to redesign it to accommodate both
Thank you.
facilities. Yeah. So as I have attended different presentations on the OCCC relocation, the penal system is trying to reinvent itself into a more rehabilitative model. And that's the hope, is we can go into a preventative mode. A lot of people that are caught in crime and committing crimes have very hard life beginnings, and obviously we don't want to expose the community to a dangerous situation. So that is off the board. Whatever is being planned and built there will be safe, and the public will not be compromised. But what is happening, again, as I understand it, is trying to move from a punitive system to a rehabilitative system, trying to incorporate people and giving them life skills to change mindsets, to change their spirit, to help them get back into community and living a productive life, and not just going in a circle of serving their time, getting out, getting back into drugs, getting back into the bad system, getting back into jail. and transferring that to their next generation and the generations that follow. So we need to break those cycles. We need to give people, again, a new way of living, a new way of hope, a new spiritual dynamic that really can overcome evil.
Oh, we are nearing the end. We don't have much time here, and there are so many things to get to. I do have to ask this question also from the audience, and I think I'm going to try and modify it just a little bit. How long have you been in your district? But also, why is it important to have a long time in your district? Because there are people that move in. I mean, we call it what's the word when you move into a place? I'm drawing a blank here. I was doing this carpet bagging. That's what it is. And I'm not saying that, but how important is it? How long have you lived in your district, and why is that important, or is it important? Garner.
My family moved into Moanalua Valley when I was in the 3rd grade. That was in 1967, I believe. So I've attended Moanalua Elementary, Moanalua Intermediate, as it was called back then. Graduated from Moanalua High School, 3rd grade graduating class. And I got married at the Moanalua Gardens Missionary Church. That is a church that I attended there. And then, I got married, and of course, I didn't want to live with my parents. So I moved to Ali Plantation, which is, again, in the district, and was able to move back into the valley. So I guess you could say that I've lived almost my entire life, less up to 3rd grade in the district.
Okay. Micah?
My mom bought our house in Moanalua when I was 3 years old or so. I did go away for college. I worked for a year in Washington, D.C. for Ms. Hirona when she was in the House of Representatives. And then I moved home. And then for a little while, I bought a condo downtown. I have to tell you, the Middle Street H1 merge is the worst. I used to wake up every morning and say, I got to live in town. I can't do this drive every day. I know I'm not talking about the people in Kapolei who have to drive 3 hours, but that 20-minute commute from Moanalua in the morning really killed me. But when this seat opened up and there weren't that many people jumping in, I thought I would move home and represent this community. So I'm still living at home. I'm trying to move out. I would love to get a place in Moanalua because it is really an awesome community. It's pretty much close to everything. It's a really good drive to the airport if you ever need to catch a flight. But unfortunately, there's just not that many homes on the market, and they're incredibly expensive. It's a very like Garner was saying, that we have really good schools in Moanalua, and so it's competitive to get into the market.
A last question for you, and I just have some closing remarks. What's an issue that we have not been able to discuss, or that I did not bring up, that you feel is important, that's not being addressed in your district? And I think we'll go with Micah first and then Garner. Issue at District 32 that's really important that we didn't get a chance to talk about.
Well, we briefly just talked about schools, but I think our schools are so important, our teachers are so important, and education is so important from the state. Having our kids educated and educated well is really important for not only moving, social economics classes, but giving people the opportunities that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise had. And that really means we need to invest in our teachers and making sure that they get automatic step payments for years of service, I think, is really important. And what I've tried to champion, because I believe in infrastructure, is how we can repurpose some of our schools to maybe, instead of, if we can't afford salaries, if we can provide teacher housing, or if we can use some of our state property that we already have to offer our teachers something a little bit different that's not being offered in any other place in our state. Our teachers are so important. We really need to invest in them and our kids.
Garner, the final word to you, an issue that we have not addressed tonight that's very important for your district.
I would agree. Education is paramount, but I want to pivot to some just basic community concerns that I've heard as I've gone through the district. One are monster homes. Some of these are city issues, but I would love to work with our city counterparts to try and address these in a very practical way. Monster homes, a lot of people doing businesses out of their homes, causing parking problems, rental abuses. So it's more, on ground level where neighbors are rubbing against neighbors. And, you got an extreme case in Waianae where somebody just got triggered and just flipped and went ballistic. And I think it's really important that we, again, learn how to restore our aloha spirit. And I'm a firm believer in neighborhood security watch. As I have gone door to door, I see where people I talk to who know their neighbors, who feel comfortable with their neighbors, feel safe in their home. They communicate with each other. They know what each other are doing. They help each other out. And places where neighbors are strangers, that's kind of a unsettling, unsafe feeling that you don't know your neighbors. And I think neighborhood security watch is a very basic component that every neighborhood should organize. It gets people together. It gets them out of their silos, out of their independence. And again, going back to the old ways of neighbor helping neighbor and being connected. And I think it would especially be beneficial in disaster situations.
Okay. Well, thank you all for being here tonight. This will be posted on our website, Kavika says, as early as tomorrow. There are snacks back there at the table. Please help yourself on the way out. I know I will. The ballots are going out October the 18th. It's coming up very soon. The election is November the 5th. And to close here, just a big round of applause for Garner, Shimizu, and Micah Aiea.